Hello, everyone. And today we have a really exciting guest here, Ann Murphy, who is with me today. She is a wellness educator, and we're going to dive deep into the world of toxins. This is such an important topic today because our world is inundated with toxins, and it's really adversely affecting our health in many ways, from autism to all kinds of autoimmune disease to even weight gain and hormone disruption. Ann's going to get into a lot of this, and I can't wait to hear more, learn more, and have some great dialogue. But Ann, before we dive in, will you give us a little bit of your background?
Sure, I'd love to. Thanks for having me here, Mark, first of all. I love talking about this stuff. So a little bit about me. I had a major health crisis, and I crashed and burned, literally physically, about 18 years ago. And it led me on a journey of research. It's what spurred me to learn how to use a computer. Somebody gave me a book, and I started reading it, and it was on toxins. And I was like, wow, I had no idea. And then I started researching, and I had explored the medical options, and I researched the drugs they wanted to put me on, and they could have killed me. And I was like, okay, this makes no sense. Right. So it literally led me on this journey of research and then experimentation with myself and having health improvement. And then I also experienced adrenal fatigue. So it was, it's been a lot of stuff. But what happened was I ended up in 2010 going to nutrition school. I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition because I was I was so interested in what I was learning and what I was seeing. And I was seeing so many people struggling with so many things and not finding answers, So I did that. And then I studied the psychology of eating, Mark David's course.
He's right here in Boulder.
Yeah, he's in Colorado. Yeah. And then I did a couple of different, Andrea Nakayama, she has a bunch of different digestive intensives. I did them. And then I got into the world of toxins, and I've taken 4 or 5 courses on that. One of them was a year-long certification course. And then after that, I studied 2 years of mindset. I took 2 courses and have 2 certifications with mindset. And that's actually where I met Mark.
Right. We both studied with Brian Grasso and Carrie Campbell on mindset. Good stuff.
Yeah. So, and that's, people ask me, well, what do you do? Well, what I like to do, what I like to say I do is I teach people who don't have time to take care of themselves how to have time to take care of themselves. Because if you can't take care of yourself, then you can't give your best to anything else or anybody else. And I see so many people just, especially entrepreneurs, just spinning that wheel, and everything is monocularly focused, and health falls apart, relationships fell apart. So
yeah, that's so important, right? If you're not optimal, you can't give from an empty vessel. So
right.
If you're just sick and beat up, whether you are an entrepreneur or a parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm working on, a course,
mm-hmm.
and I'm calling it Create Your Optimal Day. And it's for, the people who are so busy, whether it be a mom or, someone in business or an entrepreneur that, they're caught in that. We don't need to be in that hamster wheel, but we don't know how to get off, and we don't know what we don't know about how to stop it. So it's important.
Yeah.
It's important.
Well, let's dive into this whole toxin thing, because the more I learn about it, the more I'm amazed and somewhat scared of our future and the direction that we are flailing down, at least in the United States, and with, bodies who are supposed to be protecting us. So why is this whole toxin thing so important right now?
So it's really important right now because these toxins are causing so many things that are now normal, or we think are normal. And I like to say to people, okay, just because it's common does not mean it's normal.
Yeah, I say that a lot too.
because there are so many things that are like, it's not common. I mean, it's not normal to have, after you eat, to feel tired or have, you know, bloating or this or that or the other thing. But it's so common that people think it's normal. So just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal, you know? But here's the problem. So many things that are now so prevalent in our society, and not just in adults anymore, but in kids. You know,
Like symptoms, you mean?
Huh?
Symptoms, prevalence?
Yeah, symptoms. Yeah. Like there are so many. I've met 8-year-old kids with type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes used to be called adult onset. Now it's called type 2, you know,
Right.
With cholesterol issues, with heart issues. I mean, look at obesity in kids. It's off the charts. Food allergies, you know, food allergies. When I was growing up, I knew one kid ever with a food allergy.
Isn't that the truth? Like, we're probably close to the same age. It wasn't like, you know, one and
Yeah,
two kids. My
right.
daughter's in
You know,
elementary school, and like, you know, they can't have any kind of nuts or, I
right,
mean, peanut
right.
butter is not
That's
even
not
allowed.
normal. That's a sign. It's very common, but it's not normal. We think it's normal now, but it's not. It's common. It's not
Yeah,
normal. It's
yeah.
it's a sign that everything's messed up. You got, you know, stuff's really screwed up. So let's talk about here. And I mean, this is not a complete list, okay? But just think of how many of these are so common that we now think they're normal.
Yeah.
Hormone imbalance, which we're going to talk about that. Insulin resistance, weight gain, inability to lose weight, okay? And what do they call it? Metabolic resistance, okay? Diabetes, obesity, autoimmune disease, infertility, and think about how the infertility rates are off the charts.
Yeah.
Endometriosis, uterine fibroids, PCOS, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, heart disease, allergies, asthma, learning disabilities, birth defects, anxiety, depression, brain fog, chronic fatigue, cancer. And that's, I'm literally like, I have a list that goes on and on and on and on and on. And think about these. Like, we all know many people, and a lot of us are dealing with it. And we're like, well, what can we do? It didn't used to be like this. When I was growing up, it wasn't like this. People didn't have these things.
Right. We're seeing that with autism, right?
Well,
like,
I was just going to say, with autism, when I was a kid, I knew 2 people with autism, and it wasn't until I was older, you know. And then even when I had my first daughter, she is 23 now. I only knew a couple. I think it was like 2 or 3 people that had kids with autism, you know. And now I was just looking. I just read. I think it used to be like, I think it was like 30 years ago. It was 1 in 1,000
right.
had autism. Now it's 1 in 36.
Right.
Okay. It's not a coincidence. It's not like there's something going on. I have a friend who she used to work in the school system with kids with autism and ADD, ADHD, it's gut. You know, the ADHD, she was able to help these kids be almost normal by changing first of all, learning what worked for them food wise, and then changing what they were eating.
Right.
And even kids with autism, they had improvements in behaviors and, reaction times and connection with people when they healed the gut.
Yeah, right. Well, I want to get into that because Zach Bush talks a lot about gut health and increase in incidence of autism around glyphosate.
Well, and even so, my youngest daughter has OCD really bad, and I can always tell. Besides skin, because if you get a rash on your skin, that's a sign from the gut. That's something that the skin's the body's largest detox organ, and it's the last place that the body uses, but it's the most effective. And if it can't get what it needs to do through the other detox organs, it just comes through the skin. So besides having, when she'll get her rashes will get worse or whatever, but I can tell by how her OCD is as to whether she's eating the way she needs to or not.
So where are we getting all this exposure from? Where is all this stuff, all these toxins? Where are we getting them?
Okay, so we're getting them from, so there's, you know what? I'm going to get into the politics of it because that explains. And again, I can remember as a kid on TV when the commercials would come on, better farming through chemicals. I can remember those commercials, and I've seen them on like YouTube online, and I'm like, oh, I remember them. And you know what's funny? Even back then, I remember thinking like, why are they going to use chemicals? Like I've always been predisposed. Like I can remember I used to bake with my grandmother, and then my mom would buy a box of cookies. And I remember looking and thinking, wow, when I bake with Graham, like we use flour, water, sugar, eggs, like what's all this other stuff in here, you know? So here's what's happened. Okay. So when we look at the politics of this, America actually, a lot of companies used to look at America's model for approving things as more, you know, as chemicals started to be introduced into foods and then into, you know, we started developing, you know, skincare products and cleaning products and all this stuff. And what happened was that has changed. The European model is now what is emulated by other countries because what America does is we take an innocent until proven guilty approach.
Yeah.
Meaning so a company can put anything they want in their products, in the food, and there's very little regulation. And by what I mean very little regulation, it's really none. So the FDA, they basically say you can use what you want, okay? And the onus is on the consumer to prove that your product caused harm. And then the way the courts are set up, it's almost impossible to prove that,
right.
Okay? It's literally, it's ass backwards. Because, so what happens, so the EU comes from, they call it the precautionary principle, where if there is any kind of chance that this chemical is going to cause a problem, even if there's an absence of proof, okay, there's a question of, oh, this could, they remove it, restrict it, or ban it.
Wow.
Most American companies that have products over in European countries, they have 2 different formulations. And I learned this, I did skincare many years back, and I learned this then. There are different formulations for American products and products that are sold in the EU because this is illegal. The American is illegal. Can't use that because they're damaging, you know, they're dangerous, you know? So this really makes, it makes a big difference because what happens is, so we have such a lax regulation on the chemicals here. And I think part of it is because we don't have government funded healthcare, because over there they do.
Ah, that's a good point.
So they don't want to be paying out for the health issues.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of the stuff that we have here isn't, I mean, it's not that they don't have it over there, but it's really not as prevalent, you know? And I know I've been to France and Scotland, and I was amazed when I was in France, like, you don't see the obesity here. You don't see, you know, people aren't complaining about this and that and the other thing. You know, I was with a family that, you know, so I was with this family, and they had a couple of like dinner parties and stuff. So I got to talk with, you know, French people, and it was really amazing, like just the difference. So I think that's a huge part of it. So what happened is there are around 86,000 chemicals in the United States that they're registered and they're allowed for use. And they can be used in anything. They can be used like food manufacturers can use, which to me, food and manufacturer don't even belong in the same sentence, you know, but they can be used in anything. Okay. So of this 86,000, about 62,000 were grandfathered in to the Toxin Substance Control Act that was passed in the 80s. Okay, so that means they don't need to be tested. They're just grandfathered in. Free, you know, like the free pass, you know, go pass go, collect your $200 and just go, you know. Only about 200 have ever been tested. Okay?
I've heard that too, and mostly on young males.
Yeah.
Not the spectrum of ages or in both sexes, which is also frightening.
Yeah. Yeah. So above those 200 that have been tested, only about 5 or 6 have been like banned or restricted.
Imagine that. And what are some of them? Can you rattle off a few of the bad ones that, you know, we're probably ingesting and rubbing on?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about that.
Good.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about that. We're going to go into some of that as we get into some of the specific different groups, places to look out for. But what I wanted to touch on first was, you know, and again, this is so abbreviated. I really think we should do a course on this.
Sure, we'll get to it.
But you know, and we've talked about this before. So another reason why is this conversation important? Because, and I hear it all the time, people say, oh, well, you know, I'm genetically predisposed to this or to that or whatever. And the study of epigenetics, which I just find it fascinating. Like I you know, when I first started learning about this, I was like, wow, this is so cool. But, you know, they have really proven in this, you know, in looking at all this and comparing and everything, like genes load the gun. They're only 10%. 90%, what pulls the trigger is your environment, meaning what are you exposed to? Right. And that can be like the chemicals in the house, the chemicals outside, the food that you eat, your mindset, you exercise, do you not like all of this, like there's all of this stuff, you know, that determines what happens. So, okay, yes, some of these things could be genetic, but that doesn't mean you're going to get it. Okay.
So true, right? And everybody's measuring their genome now, and they're all freaked out about stuff. And, you know, they're putting way too much emphasis on their genes and what they're getting back from 23andMe. And
yeah,
I agree 100%. It's way more important, like, how are you living your life versus what is that, you know, what's loading the gun? I've never heard that analogy.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So your genes, you know, the genes load the gun, but, you know, the environment is what pulls the trigger and determines what happens, what gets expressed and what doesn't, you know? So, and I think another issue is, so in America, you know, doctors and nurses, they don't get trained in the chemical aspects. They don't get trained in nutrition, you know, like they don't get trained in that. And I've actually worked with someone and helped her shrink a tumor, a cancerous tumor, with food. You know, so there's a lot of power that's not being brought to, I think, places where it should be.
There's a lot of clinics and holistic health providers like yourself who have obviously reversed and turned around tumorous cancers and, you know, carcinogenic things. You know, started a while ago in Mexico, well, probably in Europe with Max Gershon and the Gershon.
Yeah,
you know about that. Yeah. There's all kinds, and now they're even in the U.S.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is not a foreign concept. It's just, you know, it's just scary. And
some of them have been locked up.
Exactly.
Some of them have been locked up because
one time when I was in chiropractic school in the late 80s, and she's like, don't ever treat cancer because they will chase you down.
Yeah, well, look what they did to Dr. Brzezinski.
Yeah.
They destroyed him, and they, you know, they discredited all his work, and then after they destroyed him, they were like, oh, guess what? He was right. He was curing cancer.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, so there's a lot I think that needs to be looked at. And I think that's why, like, I love when you say be your own doctor. It's important to know this stuff. Now, I want to preference this though. I want to preface it with, this is not about getting scared. This is not about freaking out and obsessing over it. You know, one of the main things that we need to do, and I think both of us, our goal is, we need to educate ourselves, because then you can make better choices.
Right.
And people say, oh yeah, well, all the stuff that's out there, I can't do anything about that, so it's useless and blah, blah. You're right, you can't do anything about that. Okay, but there's a lot you can do within your own body in your own house that will lessen the effects of what's going on out there, because you're supporting your body to be able to do what it needs to do, which we're going to get into that in a little bit. But I was thinking, before we talk about lessening the burden, why don't we talk about what hormones are?
I would love to. And I also want to make sure we get to, where are people getting, what are some of these chemical exposures? Go ahead. What are hormones?
So hormones are these like potent little, these chemicals in our body that they regulate everything in these little minute amounts.
Right.
Okay. Sometimes their concentrations are, you know, parts per trillion, not even parts per billion, parts per trillion, you know? So they're like, they're these teeny tiny minute, and people think, oh, well, it's such a little amount, it doesn't matter, but it does, because they regulate, they literally determine what's going to happen or not happen in our bodies. Okay. And so what they do is they have these receptors. So say, oh, I have my AirPods here. So say this is a hormone, it's floating around and it's looking for a receptor. It's like a key that plugs in. Okay. So a lot of these chemicals mimic the hormone receptors.
Right.
So they're going to come and they're going to plug in. Oh, I dropped it. They're going to come and they're going to plug in. And now guess what? The real receptor can't get to the hormone. Okay. So when we talk about endocrine disruptors, hormone disruptors, that's what we're talking about. They're coming in and taking the place of things that that should be plugging into the real receptors. So, you know, so what happens is, so this is the body's way of communicating with all of our systems, with everything that goes on. So now it's not being picked up right. And a lot of the tests that they do, they look at like huge exposures and like, oh, well, we can take huge exposure. They're not looking at the tiny amount. Like they say, oh, the dose makes the poison, but that's not necessarily true, because, you know, as I just showed you, you have this teeny tiny little thing with this other teeny tiny little thing, and then you got this is a foreign, it's called a xeno. Okay. And it's plugging in there and taking the place. Well, that does matter.
Right.
That's a big, you know, that makes a big, so it makes sense why these chemicals are so bad for us. So, you know, do you want to get into, you want to talk about some of the, like, start breaking them down by like category?
Well, I want to go back real quick to the endocrine disruptors, because it's really important. You're right. They are binding in receptor sites where they should not be. And so our body's natural ability to stimulate those receptors, whether it's thyroid, whether it's adrenals, whether it's genitals or reproductive organs, are not being, they're not working right, because our normal signalers aren't working. And so we're starting to see, and we've been seeing this, you know, thyroid disease is, you know, ubiquitous. A lot of people have hypothyroid or Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Male infertility is decreasing, sperm count is decreasing,
and small male babies being born with small testes.
Right, exactly. Women more difficulty getting pregnant, or you know, over estrogen, basically, because the plastic in our environment is binding estrogen receptor sites,
Yeah.
causing.
There's xenoestrogens. They come in and they take the place. And what happens, like, we tend to get estrogen dominant as we age anyway. And estrogen is what makes cells multiply and divide, grow, multiply and divide. So think about that. You got this, and the progesterone is what puts on the brakes and gives the balance, and that's not happening. Right. And then we have all these xenoestrogens. Yeah. So the weight is a huge part of it, and a big part of that too is heart disease and diabetes, insulin resistance, and even like breast cancers and prostate cancers. They're directly related to especially these plastics, and infertility.
Right.
Because of the the fertility of the hormones.
And we're hearing, right? I mean, you're saying so many common health conditions.
Yeah.
Certainly not normal, but they are super common.
Yeah.
Tell us about some of these categories that you were going.
So first I want to touch on plastics first, because now I see everybody's, and I've had people like, oh, but this is BPA free. Okay. BPA free doesn't mean anything, because what these companies have done is they use BPS or BPF, which are just as bad, and in some instances can be worse than BPA.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because there's more than just A.
Yeah. There's also dioxins in the plastics, and these things, they all leach. Okay. Mm-hmm. There's the phthalates are in your plastics. They leach into whatever you have in, whether it be a water bottle or if you're storing food or anything like that. Now, that being said, there are some plastics that are worse than others. Okay. So when you're looking at plastics, 5, 4, and 2 have less leaching components in them. So 5, 4, and 2 are better than any of the other ones. And they tend to be really the hard, they tend to be like the hard plastics.
Right. And you find that in the triangle, right?
Yeah.
Usually on the plastic bottle or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't
it
that
has the number. Yeah.
5,
it has the number.
2.
Yeah. So that's important to realize, like, I don't use plastic unless it's a last resort. I have stainless steel, glass. I have a couple of glass ones, and they have like the silicone. Silicone, as long as you don't heat it or freeze it, is pretty good.
Or put it in your boobs.
Yeah, or put it in your boobs. Yeah, breast implant illness. I've been really studying that. That's scary. That's like, and a lot of times, so like in your kitchen, great way to minimize exposure. No plastic. Yeah. And if you are using plastic, definitely do not heat in it. Have you ever seen, you heat something in plastic and it has that like ring around it of discoloration? That's because the molecules of the food got in there when molecules of toxins were leaching out into your food.
Scary.
So glass is the best. Stainless steel. If you're going to use plastic, it's better to get natural wax paper, not, the wax paper like you get at a regular grocery store, because they have a lot of additives in. But you can get natural wax papers that just use like beeswax or whatever. Yeah. Or I have the cloths that are beeswax coated.
We have those too.
Yeah. I use that. And if I'm going to put something in plastic, which I very rarely do, I will put it in wax paper or something first.
That's good.
So then you're not getting that contact.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I know, again, that stuff's so common, but it's not necessarily the best thing for us to use. And I know we can get that stuff for cheap.
Right.
Cheap. That's the stuff you're saying that triggers our epigenetics. That actually starts to cause the trigger to be pulled.
Yeah, exactly. And just think about baby bottles.
Oh, yeah.
you know, baby bottles of plastic, or if they use the ones with the plastic bag thing or whatever. I nursed all three of my kids exclusively. So, but yeah, but that's, you know, like that's right. That's literally, you got this little baby, and kids are more susceptible because pound for pound, they breathe, eat, and drink more than an adult in a day, because, you know, their respiration is quicker, you know, like they're eating, but they're so small, you know, so like the exposures are actually more intense. They're magnified for younger, you know?
Yeah. That's a scary thing. You know, I tested my daughter on 200 different toxins, right? Environmental toxins. We did an urine test from Great Plains, and it came back with high in organophosphates, and, you know, off the charts sort of organophosphates. And this was when she was 6. And I'm like, where the heck is she getting this exposure? So you're right there. A little bit of exposure is bigger in a smaller body that can't detoxify very well. And the only place I could really identify, couple, the public parks we go to, and we eat a lot of tacos. I mean, that's just like, you know, we live in Colorado. There's a lot of good Mexican food. I make it, we eat it. Corn. I'm sure all the corn tortillas are.
Oh yeah. Oh, they're sprayed. Yeah.
And organic, but your point is well taken. With young, small people, who would expect a 6-year-old to be high in organophosphate?
Right. They're testing newborns and the umbilical cords of mothers, and they're loaded with all these toxins.
Yeah.
You know, and a newborn should be clean, you know, like they shouldn't have that stuff, you know? Let's talk about food a little bit. 'Cause to me, food, like that's like, it's intimate. You're putting it in your body, you know? And I always tell people, you get 3 votes a day. You get to vote with your dollars, you know, and you need to make it count, because what you put in directly affects everything, because what you eat becomes your cells. It becomes what you're looking at, what, you know, how your thoughts, your feel, like it literally influences everything about you, you know? So, besides, here's some additives that I want to talk about first, and then we'll go into GMOs and glyphosate.
Yeah, great.
So natural flavors, that's literally a cover term for about 200 to 300 different chemicals, most of them genetically modified. You know, they run the whole gamut. High fructose corn syrup. Ascorbic acid, people say, oh, well, it's just vitamin C. You know where they make it?
Corn.
It's genetically modified. It's genetically modified molds.
Yeah. A lot of stuff is made that way.
Yeah. You know, sugar, if something says sugar, it's genetically modified sugar beet. Okay. It has to say sugar cane or cane, evaporated cane, something, you know, they word it different, but it has to say cane, or it's GMO sugar beet. Aspartame, you know, aspartame, however you want to say, that's literally a neurotoxin.
Right.
Olestra, they say, oh, it replaces butter. The body can't absorb it, and it's a carcinogen. Blue.
Anal leakage.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Oh, it damages the gut. Yeah.
It's not absorbing fats. And so, you know, fat-soluble vitamins, A, E, D, and K, not absorbing. You're not absorbing essential fatty acids.
Yep. Yeah.
Stupid.
Blue, red, and yellow dyes.
Banned in Europe, right?
They're banned in, yeah. They cause chromosome damage, thyroid issues, and cancer. Potassium bromate, which is used to increase the volume of the bread and flour.
Yeah.
You know, trans fats. Phosphoric acid, which that's in sodas, that increases the bubbles.
Oh, right.
It helps take off, it can strip rust off of something, and you're putting that in your, okay, what's that doing to your tooth enamel? It's probably demineralizing bones, you know?
It does demineralize bone. Yeah. The acidity in phosphoric acid in one soda would never make it through the kidneys. So what it does is the body pulls the calcium from bone to neutralize that so you can pee. So you become osteoporotic.
Yeah. And that's what happens when you're eating all these processed foods. If you're eating something that comes from a package, they take all the natural occurring nutrients out, and they put they enrich it. It's called they enrich it, and it's synthetic, it's man-made, and that's what most of your vitamins are, synthetic. And what happens is the body doesn't know what to do with it. Right. So because the molecular structure isn't something that it knows, so it ends up, it can't process it, so then it ends up stripping nutrients from the bone, so you have a demineralization. So we eat to give nutrients, and here we're eating and we're literally taking nutrients away.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense. So let's talk a little bit about like the GMOs and this, and like, you know, the chemicals that are sprayed. So 5 billion pounds are used each year on agricultural crops, farms, forests, golf courses, schools, city parks. And the problem, so many of these pesticides, they're lipophilic, meaning they're fat loving, so they're stored in our fat cells.
Right.
Okay. And the body does that with toxins. Like the heavier a person is, the more toxic they are, because the body is always trying for homeostasis. It's always trying to keep us flowing the way we should. So it stores these toxins in the fat cells, you know. That's not a good thing. That is not a good thing, you know. So the organophosphates, like the pesticides, that's a huge part of it, and they can contribute to the ADHD, hyperactivity, attention problems, and then again the gut. Okay, and then we have glyphosate, Roundup.
Right.
Okay, so glyphosate came out for Monsanto's GMO seeds.
Right.
So let's look at this for a second. So GMOs, the exact nature of GMOs are, so if the animal eats it, or the insect, bug, whatever, it basically ruptures their intestinal tract or whatever, you know. It's designed to do that. Okay. Then glyphosate, when it's sprayed on, what it does is it prevents nutrient absorption at a cellular level. Okay, well, it's doing that to us too.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's actually classified as a antibiotic.
Exactly, right.
And antibiotics kill everything. It's an anti-nutrient, you know. So, and it cracks me up. People like, oh, phytic acid. Okay, you know what? Soak your beans and your grains and you're fine. Like, but you're eating stuff that's sprayed with glyphosate, you know. The use of glyphosate has increased over 100-fold since 1974. And it's linked to oxidative damage throughout the body, neurotoxicity, breast cancer, prostate cancer, miscarriage, kidney disease, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And there's a whole bunch of other things. Yeah, autism. Yep. Yeah. So again,
probably the increase in autoimmune disease as gut.
Oh, it's definitely, yeah, it's definitely connected to autoimmune, because autoimmune comes from the gut. And if it, you know, it destroys the gut, then it has to, you know. And the other thing is antibiotic resistance, because it's an antibiotic.
Yeah.
You know, and we all know now, like, oh, you're not supposed to be, not that people listen to it, but you don't want to do that, you know. And it also affects how the body's able to detoxify, because it depletes glutathione, and that's the primary enzyme that helps the liver with detoxification, like metabolize toxins. So
a lot of those foods that are glyphosate resistant, like you're saying, Monsanto has made those seeds so that they resist the glyphosate.
Yeah, they
continue to live. Is soy, corn, to some extent wheat now. And they use it as a, not exfoliant, but sort of
as a desiccant. So it's a desiccant. So what that means is it is now sprayed on almost all crops that are not organic, because what it does, it helps with the dry. It makes it dry more effectively and more evenly.
Right.
So it's a cheaper, quicker way, and not having to deal with nature, which is what they've always done, you know. So a lot of times, let's talk about labels for a second. Okay. Non-GMO project verified. And I did work with Jeffrey Smith, because I was involved in GMO-free PA and the bills that we bought. Yeah. to Senate and the House for labeling, which they squelched. But, you know, so people say, oh, but it says, you know, it's non-GMO project verified. Okay, that means that the seeds were not genetically modified. That's a good thing. Here's the problem. There have been numerous studies, individual, like, you know, independent studies. These products are loaded with glyphosate, all kinds of pesticides. I think there's like 68 or something like different pesticides that have been tested on. So it needs to say organic, certified organic. That's the best way to know that at this rate, very little things don't have any.
Right.
But it wasn't sprayed. It would have been, you know, okay, it came from the rain or whatever, because glyphosate, it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere now.
Because it's water soluble, right?
Water soluble.
When it
Yeah.
rains, those seeds run off and they go.
I have a farm right up here. It's this huge farm, and he's you know, he does GMO soy and corn. And a woman I know has tried to talk to him several times, and he goes, I go to the trainings. It's like 3 times a year they have these trainings, and they break down into salts. And she's like, yeah, they do. What's in those salts, and where do those salts go? That's what you really need to educate yourself on.
Right.
Because it doesn't just go away,
right.
you know? So they found that just 1 week of eating organic can lower the circulating pesticides by 80 to 90%. They've done like blood tests, like what you did, like urine tests, and here's the thing, blood tests are not as effective as urine, you know, feces, hair. A lot of times those are what's more reliable in your readings. And one other thing, you cannot wash the pesticides off. Okay. They become
those sprays.
Yeah, like people, like, oh, well, I scrub it real good. What happens is these pesticides work by absorption, okay? They become an integral part of that plant. So when the bud forms, the toxins are in there.
Yeah.
When the fruit or the vegetable grows, it is like you can't peel it away because it is whatever you're eating. So just something to be really aware of.
I saw our nanny last week. She had her own child, 1-year-old boy. And I said, so what's his favorite food now? And she said, strawberries. And I said, I hope you're giving him organic strawberries because, as you know, Ann, it's the most highly sprayed.
They're the worst. Yeah.
Out there. And she didn't know. And I turned her on to the environmental working group and the Dirty Dozen. I wonder how many parents don't know. And the other thing too about like berries, you know, I go to a lot of conferences and they serve up these healthy continental breakfasts, but I never eat the berries.
No. Oh no, they're highly sprayed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're highly sprayed. And and one of the things that they're sprayed with, it's 2,4-D. It's the base of Agent Orange.
Right. They're still using that stuff, right?
Yeah. So that's. And people don't know, and they look at you like you're crazy, but it's important to really start looking at this stuff and realizing, like, wait a minute, this is not okay.
This is the epigenetic. These are the things that are turning us into sick people. I mean, you know, it's not like just you got this one exposure to something that was obvious. It's like you got a pie in the face. It wasn't that.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing. Like a lot of times they look at, you know, oh, well, they have their acceptable amounts. They're not looking at, okay, which that's a man-made number to begin with.
Exactly.
Okay. But you're not looking at, okay, but that's in everything that this person has used or eaten all day long, every day.
Right.
So where's your acceptable amount? Because their exposure is like this versus you're looking at, oh, well, in this one product, but that's not a reality.
Right. Because they're getting it on the skin, they're putting it all over, they're eating it, they're breathing it. You know, I live in a city too and measured my exposure, right? Benzene, I'm sure from fumes.
From fumes.
And as much as I filter our water and stuff, we had exposure to crap from the water as I tracked it down. So, like you're saying, it's coming in different ways.
Yeah.
No acceptable good level.
No, exactly. Exactly. Because it's cumulative. And a lot of it, like we talked about, it's stored in the fat. So it's not like, okay, so vitamin E it's a fat soluble vitamin. So it's stored in your fat. So you want to be careful, like, of your exposure. Vitamin A too, like vitamin C is a rare one. It's water soluble. So your body doesn't need it. You just, you pee it out. But yeah, people don't look at this stuff is just like piling up, piling up, piling up.
Yeah.
So,
And as we get fatter as a nation, right, we create
there's
bigger,
more. Yeah.
like, fat globules
Yep.
that we can just keep stuffing more.
Sucking it in. Yep. Yeah. 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 The other thing, like, let's talk real quick about personal care products.
Yeah.
You put them on your skin. So a lot of medications are given transdermally because the skin, like I said, it's the body's largest organ and it's a detoxification organ. Your body uses it last, but I mean, it's not even that it uses it last because you're constantly, when you sweat is one of the best ways, like those BPAs, BPS, BPF, the dioxins from the plastic, the best way to move them out is by sweat.
Glyphosate as well.
Yeah, glyphosate as well.
Yeah.
Sweat is the best way to move that out, so when you think about it, the skin, it puts out, but it also absorbs. That's why a lot of medications are given by a patch these days, transdermal absorption, Well, there are over 100,000 chemicals, over 10,000 chemicals used in personal care products. And again, most of them never been tested for safety,
right?
Because of our approach to it, So you're looking at, phthalates and parabens, quaternium 15, DMD, hydantoin, and I always struggle with this one. Diazolidinoyl urea, sodium lauryl sulfate, and sodium lauryl sulfate. And sodium lauryl sulfate can have 1,4-dioxane, which is a known carcinogen, but they use it as a foaming agent. They're also skin irritants. They strip your skin, has it's called an acid mantle, and it likes to be slightly acidic. It's actually the first line of defense for the immune system. They strip that. Okay. Can irritate the skin, contact dermatitis, So when it comes down to personal care products, I tell people, you were saying the EWG, Environmental Working Group, think dirty. And there's this woman, her name's Paulina. She was a pharmacist and she was concerned by what she saw being used and stuff. She now you can go online, and she just opened a physical location up in Boston. I would love to go there sometime. It's called The Pharmacy Shop, and it's FARMACIA.com. Everything, she has all kinds of personal care products there, and every single one of them is totally safe, totally clean. And I've used some things, and I know a woman who uses everything from her, and she's like, everything I've ever used is incredible. So it's TheFarmacieshop.com. I think that would be a great place to start sourcing the things you're going to use on your body. Let's talk.
Yeah, look at toothpaste. Look at shampoo.
Oh my gosh,
right?
toothpaste.
Toothpaste is sodium lauryl sulfate.
Oh yeah. Well, and the fluoride, like, it's toxic. And people think, oh well, fluoride. No, they're using industrial grade. It's not even food grade. It's industrial grade. It's illegal to dump it. It's kind of like mineral oil. It's illegal to get rid of it. Oh well, let's put it in the food. And let's put it in the water, and let's put it in personal care products. How does it make sense? How does it make sense? It doesn't,
This is why after 30 years of practicing, you got to be your own doctor, because really nobody's watching out for you to the degree that you.
Right.
Don't say it to make people paranoid or to keep you out of the healthcare system if you
right.
need advice, but you have to be your own personal,
yeah. Yeah, well, and unfortunately, doctors don't learn about this stuff, and they don't know that it's a contributing factor. They're just looking at, well, what's the symptom?
Right. Exactly.
But there's a lot more than what's the symptom, So yeah, the other thing is like when you look at your cleaning products,
Yeah.
so our indoor air is 2 to 5 times, and sometimes in some houses, if you don't open your windows, can be 100 times worse than the outside air.
Isn't that amazing?
You know, and it comes from the household cleaners, and they're like, they have the volatile organic compounds, the VOCs, you know, and they're linked to respiratory issues, asthma, headaches, irritability, reduced fertility. You hear the common theme here. And certain cancers, you know, and a lot of them, you're using them and you're breathing them in.
Right.
So they're entering the bloodstream, like boom, you know, that's the most effective after injection, you know, like is breathing it in.
Right.
So again, you know, there are, to me, I have a couple here that I recommend for people, but to me, I think Branch Basics.
What is that?
It's best. It's a totally natural cleaner, and you get it. It comes in a big bottle, and then you mix. They give you spray bottles, and you mix it with water. They give you like, you know, X parts for whether you're doing it like a cleaner, a bathroom cleaner, or laundry, whatever.
Right.
You can even use it for hand soap. And then what I do is I put my own essential oils.
Yeah, that'll do it.
In, you know, and you can do some of the, like, you can do your make it your own, like you can do like an all-purpose disinfectant. It's a cup water, a third cup white distilled vinegar, 2 teaspoons rubbing alcohol, and then 8 to 10 drops of any essential oil you want. I usually say use citrus ones, because then they're, you know, antibacterial, antimicrobial, things like that.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you can do. You make it your own. You can just, you know, go online. I don't say Google anymore, because don't use Google. Use Ecosia or DuckDuckGo, and there's another one, and I can't think of it now, because Google is a part of the machine.
Google's part of the machine. Google is stacking the deck on the search. So,
oh, they've shut out the, if you search anything that's not mainstream,
yeah,
you don't get it. And you get, they tell you that it's not something that they support.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it's scary where we're getting, how our information is being fed to us now.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
so some things you want to look at with the cleaning products, you want to stay away from, and fragrance in anything, whether it be skincare, cleaning products, or whatever. Fragrance is literally, it's all these it's phthalates, it's, you know, it's all these things that we're talking about just in a cover. So if it says fragrance, natural flavoring too. That's
another good one.
That's literally a cover for like anywhere from 200 to 250 different chemicals, and most of them are genetically modified. So
MSG.
And it's even in organic.
Yeast extract.
Yes.
That's all chemical.
And it's and it can be in organics these days, because they've watered down. So that's why you need to learn to read labels. You know, it's really important. So another thing,
you and I, Ann, we cook at home. Today I'm making Hungarian goulash. Looked up a recipe, never made it. Sounds good. I cook at home as much as possible.
Yeah, same.
You never know what you're getting out.
Yeah, you don't.
Because of all of this.
I wanted to talk real quick about cookware. Talking about
do tell.
Yeah. So here's the problem with the cookware. People want non-stick, right? And then we had this, you know, the Teflon and this and that, all these different coatings. They're highly, highly, highly toxic. Okay. They're PFAs and PFOAs. They're very, very, they're like classified as very toxic chemicals. But again, they're allowed to use them because guess what? You got to prove that they harmed you. Oh, and you can't do that.
Right.
You know,
impossible.
Yeah. So things you want to stay away from, the non-stick, like Teflon. And there's a lot of these, like say they're green ones. They're still, it's a lot of the same chemicals. So you really need to be aware. There's so much greenwashing these days in everything, you know, in cleaning products and skincare and like, you know, these kind of things. And even like non-stick ceramic are pretty heavily toxic laden. Aluminum, it's not something you want to use because it
Right.
accumulates in the brain. Clay, a lot of clays are highly toxic. They can have high levels of lead. So it's kind of, you really want to stay away from that. So some of the best, your cast iron. Now I'm going to say the older cast irons are typically better. Lodge is pretty good. A lot of them now, though, they have a coating, a chemical coating that they've put on them. So if you can get from like an antique store, like an old cast, and then what you do, you take steel wool and you scrub it down, and you can go on Ecosia or whatever and look this up. You scrub it, and you get all like the rust or whatever that's on there, and then you wash it. You never use soap on cast iron. You dry it, and then you coat it with like flaxseed oil, and you put it in the oven and you bake it at 400. I forget how long. Like there's a whole way to do it. I did it one of mine, and it's perfect. And then every time I use it, I just hot water. I have like a brush, and then I dry it. You want to dry it so it doesn't rust, because they rust pretty easily. And then I put it on the heat with a little bit of the flaxseed oil, bring it to smoke point, turn it off, and it's good to go. Yeah. And the thing that's beautiful with cast iron is it gives you a little bit of iron.
Right.
It uses a little iron into your food, and it's a natural. So if you go like this and your whatever you're cooking doesn't come out, wait a couple of minutes. It releases when it's ready. Yeah. So cast iron is one of my favorites. Enameled cast iron can be okay.
Yeah.
Steel, like your stainless steel. Okay.
In my Hungarian goulash in a La Crusade. That's
they're really good. Yeah, La Crusade is good. Yeah, enameled steel and carbon steel can be good as well. And glass is actually, glass pots. Although I've used them a couple times at other people's houses, and I find that things stick to them a lot. So, not necessarily my favorite, but
I use the cast iron skillet this morning, and sometimes I'll clean it with salt. Actually, it was
you can do that
when I was cooking in college. So coarse salt.
Yeah, you can do that.
That's roughens it up as well, and also removes any flavor out of it. Maybe you cooked something with onions or garlic, what have you. And then I agree, and then I season it like you said, with oil, and it's good to go.
It's good to go. And like for like bacon cookies or whatever, first of all, I very rarely aluminum foil lasts in my house for many years, because it's like I need, I don't use aluminum cookie sheets or anything. I use the actually the Pampered Chef, their stoneware.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I use that for everything. And that's another one, like you don't use soap on it. You just use hot water, and I just scrub it up, and I cook anything and everything on that, and they work great. So I think the bottom line is it comes down to not coming from a place of fear and overwhelm and, oh my God, it's all going to kill me and blah, blah.
Throw up your arms and do nothing.
Yeah. It's like, what can I do? And start little, start small. If you take little steps, those little steps add up.
We talked about indoor air. I use something called Air Oasis. It's an indoor air purifier. The 400 version, it was like $400. It is about, this big. It uses different technologies to kill molds, bacteria, odor. It was $400. It does 1,000 square feet, and you can tell a difference. Because it broke, and I didn't know it was broken for about 2 or 3 months, and I'm like, what? But so those sorts of things. How about water filters? What are your suggestions about that?
So here's the problem with that. There is no one answer.
Yeah, right.
Because you need to know what's in your water. A lot of them don't really filter a lot of stuff. Berkey is a good one.
Yeah. In
general, but all of these like, you have your Pure and your Brita and all them. They're you know, and people have, oh, well, I have an inline water filter. They're not, because there's so much, you know, um, you got pharmaceuticals. There's residual pharmaceuticals in there. So like you're drinking the tap water and you're drinking other people's, you know, anxiety
Yep.
medicines and, you know, whatever they're
Yeah.
taking, psychotic, antipsychotic, you know, whatever,
Yeah.
antibiotics, all that. There's so many chemicals in the water, and you got the fluoride, and you got
Chlorine.
chlorine,
Yep.
you know, all things that are they kill,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So I'm fortunate. I have well water that's pretty clean. I do have reverse osmosis, but the problem with that is reverse osmosis is good, but it does waste a lot. For every 1 gallon, it wastes like 4 gallons in the process. You know, I have an inline one. Um, and there's no minerals left.
Right.
So I use trace minerals. You know, I keep them right at the sink. I have one at the sink and one on the counter, and then you put your minerals back in, you know. In general, there's one that, what's it called? Aqua True, that this functional medicine doctor that I follow swears by, and I've done some reading, and it's really good, but it's in plastic. So it's leaching.
Yeah.
You know? So, I mean, in general, I say Berkey, but Berkey, you need to make sure you clean those filters well. You know, there's a hole and you got to clean your whole unit every week. If you can go, what's it called? Findaspring.com and find a spring, you know, you can go get water there. I used to do that with a friend of mine. She and I would go. It was great. We would go. We'd fill all these jugs, and then we'd go for a hike because it was in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, like spring water is great.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and I do, like when I go to the shore to my sister's, I get spring water at my local organic store. And sometimes now what I do, because I have so many bottles, because I go to the shore a lot, instead of buying more glass bottles of spring water, I've saved a bunch of them and I fill from my sink and I put my minerals in, and then I just take them down with me.
So let me ask you just one more quick question is like, what do we do to clear this stuff out? What do you recommend? I know you have a detox program, and I'm curious to hear more about that.
Yeah. So, okay. So, you know, I'm rebuilding my website now, and the woman that's working with me, she had left. I call it a safe detox, because when you detox, it's not about not eating. It's not about starving yourself. It's not about doing all this crazy shit and taking this stuff, because here's the thing. If you lessen these exposures, then what happens is our bodies are meant to detox. If they're not digesting food, that's why it's important to not eat all the time throughout the day.
Right.
Your body is not digesting food. It is trying to detoxify.
Yep.
Okay. But when you've got all of this stuff that we just talked about constantly being inundated, the liver can't function right, the kidneys can't function right, like nothing can function the way it's supposed to. So to me, it's important, like, let's look at this stuff and start eliminating this, because then if we do a detox, it's going to be more effective. You're going to actually move more toxins out, and, you know, yeah, you may feel bad, but I always tell people, like, if you start feeling really, like, it's okay. You may feel like uncomfortable, like not so great or whatever, but if you start feeling really, really sick, like, you need to eat. The other thing when you detox is you want to use real food. Most of it raw, all of it organic, most of it raw, because raw foods help the body with the toxins, because it's got enzymes and it's got bioavailable nutrients. So it makes it a lot easier on the body. You know, hydration is very important as well. I mean, all the time, especially when you're doing a detox, because that's what helps flush things out and move things through.
Yeah.
So to me, I think it's more important. So many, like I used to run detox and I stopped because, and even though they were safe detoxes, I just started feeling like, is this really the right thing to do? Because people are relieving toxins and they got livers that are sluggish and can't do what they need to do. And I think this is the more important thing to do right now. And then look at, how do I detox and make it, it needs to be food based. It needs to be based around food. Obviously, you can get to a point where you can do, restricted eating or intermittent fasting, however you want to call it. But I think that's all stuff that comes after we start lessening what we're putting in.
Yeah, I totally agree, right? You got to stop putting it in, because if you're still putting it in and attempting to detox, you're just running on a treadmill.
Yeah.
So I totally agree. Stop putting it in, eat more healthy, drink plenty of water. I was looking at saunas this morning, circa 1930s house, which is great, but it's small. And so I don't really have room for a hard sauna, but they make these little tent-like saunas.
Yeah, I've seen them.
And I'm going to reach out to a friend today who I trust and respect in healthcare and see how well he likes that, because I think sweating it out and infrared and things like that are really important. But your point about making sure it's an you're not just starving and trying to detox by, overly fasting, because the body needs B vitamins, it needs amino acids, it needs vitamin D for the liver to actually detoxify.
Right,
not giving it any of that, and all this stuff is getting dumped out of the fat cells. You're just gonna, like you said, make yourself feel like crap again.
Yeah, and then the body's struggling to, oh, we have to put it somewhere again. Like, we already dealt with this, and now we got to do it again. What the hell should we do it?
Right, exactly, right. So true. And same with bowel movements. That's an extra way that when the body's detoxifying, some of it will be turned into a water soluble way of getting it out through urine, but some of it is not. It gets dumped back into the colon. And so you're not having daily bowel movements. You're reabsorbing that.
Reabsorbing it,
First pass through the liver, and the liver then again is burdened by a second or third time it's trying to detox.
Stuff. Yeah.
It can be,
and breathing and breathing is like getting your heart rate up and getting that respiration. That's another way to help with detoxification.
Right.
That people don't think of. I love sauna. I have a friend, she's got it's the no EMF and the no glue or anything. And it's infrared. I was going and sitting in hers for a while, but it's really hard with our schedules. We just don't line up. So let me know, because I'd be interested in checking that out.
Yeah, I will. I want to try to get one for Christmas, so I'm going to look into it further.
Yeah.
Let me ask you just a couple. You mentioned a couple resources. Environmental Working Group. We'll put these in the show notes here too. The Pharmacy Shop.
Yep.
Any books or other suggestions? You said you got a course coming up soon, I believe.
Yeah, I have a course coming out, and it's Create Your Ultimate Day, and it focuses on, I think, what are the three most important things: food, activity, and mindset.
Yeah.
And basically it's, we have become so reliant on other people telling us what we should do, how we should do it, how we should eat, this and that and the other thing. And the reality is, that may have worked for that person that wrote that book, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. It's not one size fits all. It's one size fits one. And people they're running around all day long, not taking time for self and saying, I don't have time. That's a priority. That's a priority.
Right.
And the course is based around, and there's educational components, a 30-day course. So it's 10 days on each topic, So I have education in there, but then I have action steps, because we're so much like, oh, I'm learning, I'm reading, but we're not doing. And it's the doing that brings the change. So it's very general, it's very easy, and it's, you know, it's you taking these things, making them your own, but it's geared to learning to listen to what works for my body food wise, what activity works for my body. You know, not, some people should not be going to the gym, and activity, movement is not about beating yourself up. It's about something that makes you feel good. And it's not, you know, you go for an hour a day, oh, well, I went to the gym today, and then you sat at your computer for 12 hours, or even if it's 8 hours, like, that actually, you negated everything. Like, you need to have movement through the day. So it's, you know, I talk a lot about bringing that in. And then the whole mindset aspect of it, that to me is the most important thing, because how you're looking at this stuff has a huge effect on how it's going to work for you. So we tackle that too.
So where can people find you, Ann? I know your website's under construction, but this video will last into infinitum. So
yeah, and maybe we can put this, once I get it up and running, I'll have Guna put this on there too.
Sure.
So it's newapproachwellness.com.
All right.
And I spent 3 hours yesterday videoing, so we should be we should be getting up and running soon. And you can always reach out to me at Ann at New Approach Wellness is my email, or find me on Facebook.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, we really want to thank you. This has been really informative. We covered so many good pieces. It feels really approachable, really doable, which I appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big fan of, you know, you got to do, you know, X, Y, Z, and it's, you know, one person can do it. I'm all about, like, what you are is, like, simple, natural, easy, accessible, not high tech, you know, back to the basics.
And that's just it. Back to the basics. We don't need all this other stuff. And the thing to me is, I always tell people, good, better, best. You know, okay, this is where you are. Well, let's make this choice. This is good. And then as you start learning more, then it's easier to, like, okay, you can upgrade, you know?
Yeah.
But no sense in overwhelm.
Well, thank you so much. And I'll post this, and you'll be able to reach in with more questions. And again, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
And
happy to do it.
Valuable.